Hi, I'm Tom Geisel. At Sun National Bank, we believe that citizens need to be informed about the important issues that affect their daily lives. That's why we're proud to support programming produced by the Caucus Educational Corporation and their partners in public television.
This special edition of One-on-One with Steve Adubato is brought to you from the Tisch WNET studios at Lincoln Center. Funding has been provided by Hackensack University Medical Center, Bloomfield College, offering small classes and big opportunities since 1868, New Jersey Manufacturers Insurance Group, auto insurance, homeowners insurance, and banking under the principle of stewardship, and by Verizon Communications.
This is One-on-One.
That's good acting, yeah.
I get that a lot. I go to Atlantic City all the time, like, are you the guy? I go, no, I'm not.
This is one you can't afford to miss.
They thought that I wouldn't survive it, but I knew I would.
Hi, I'm Steve Adubato. We're coming to you from the Tisch WNET studios here at Lincoln Center. We are proud to be joined by Mark Naison, who is a professor of African American Studies and History at Fordham University. You have not been teaching there for 42 years.
Oh, yes, I did. I have. I started there when I was 24 years old in 1970.
And you're currently teaching a course called From Rock and Roll to Hip Hop, Urban Youth Cultures in Post-War America. Fascinating stuff. And as I looked at this course and what you have in it, it's so much about how music plays a role in our lives and how music is a window into our history.
Oh, it absolutely is. Even when I was teaching in the early 70s, I always played music in my classes because I felt it was a way of capturing particular historical eras. I grew up in Brooklyn in the 50s, and we were part of a whole generation of people who started singing doo-wop on the street corners and in the hallways, and that music shaped our lives.
Right.
But we would not have been able to do that if we were growing up in the Depression, because we all would have had to work to help support the families. Rock and roll was a product of a period of unusual prosperity in American society, where young people, even in working class neighborhoods, had disposable income. Anybody could get a part-time job, and with that, you could get a transistor radio, you could get one of those little, record players with the 45s, and we didn't realize it at the time that we were fortunate in that way, and we had a music that we could call our own, which our parents, didn't understand.
And the hip-hop piece?
The hip-hop piece arises in a totally different environment. This is when New York City is undergoing deindustrializations, factories are closing, middle-class people are moving out, neighborhoods are experiencing arson and abandonment, there are drug epidemics, and worse than that, the music programs in the schools that we had in the 50s are being taken out by the fiscal crisis. And young people who were in these neighborhoods which are falling apart without access to music instruction created a music out of nothing.
You're listening to the music of New York City behind us.
Yeah.
Right, the sirens right now, it's part of the city.
No, broken glass everywhere. That was their world, but they took the music around them, which is what they heard in the radio, and they took the dance moves that they were seeing from James Brown or Bruce Lee movies, and they created an art form which was totally different in sound, but was appropriate to their world. See, we loved harmony because we were living better than our parents did. I grew up in a Jewish-Italian neighborhood in Brooklyn where all the parents had lived through the Depression. And the memories of that weighed on them. But us, we now were living in a period of prosperity, and we had these limitless hopes of achieving the American dream.
And the music reflects that?
Absolutely.
And the music now reflects what?
Now, today, the music today reflects confused commercialism gone sour. See, the hip-hop of the 70s and 80s reflected a world that was falling apart, but where young people were going to create their place in it. They made it. They developed. Today, people inherit music that was created in different circumstances, which is filled with the expectation of prosperity. There's bling and, you know, there's talk about cars and wealth, except that now there's an economic crisis which is making that harder and harder to achieve. So the result is the music doesn't have a soul. It doesn't have a center. The great hip hop that I remember is either stuff like Grandmaster Flash's The Message, you know, broken glass everywhere, don't push me 'cause I'm close to the edge. It described what things were like in the 70s and 80s after the fires and the, you know, hit the neighborhoods of the Bronx. Then in the 90s, you have these great songs like Wu-Tang Clan's Cream, Cash Rules about the drug dealing in the crack era, or Biggie Smalls' song, Things Done Changed, about how the world that I grew up in Bedford-Stuyvesant, where there were cookouts and parents took care of kids, is replaced by this violent world that, you know, our parents used to take care of us, now they're scared of us. Another line is, you're either slinging crack rock or have a wicked jump shot. These were hard times, but the music was a great narrative story about it. Then we went through a period where the crack epidemic ended, a prosperity started to come, and then you have the music that glorifies materialism.
But you also say, Mark, and I bet there are a lot of parents watching this who have a hard time relating to what you're talking about right now because they don't know the music you're talking about.
Yeah.
You also argue that parents and their kids should be listening to this music together.
I think they should listen to the music that came out of the earlier periods of hip hop to see that this music has the potential to tell great stories. Today's hip hop, I have problems with.
Because?
Because there's no.
First of all, the language.
Well,
is the language different in today's hip hop? You have said that the N word was not used in the earlier days of hip hop the way it is now, or the B word, right, to refer to women. Is that true?
That's absolutely true. In the early '80s, you have let's take the two great songs that set hip-hop on the map is Rapper's Delight and The Message by Grandmaster Flash. You will not find an N-word or a B-word in either of those songs. That first starts to come in the late 80s when the crack epidemic hit the cities and set in motion a whole set of catastrophes, which led to a lot of tension between men and women, particularly since the crack epidemic was the first drug epidemic which hit women as hard as men. And that set in motion a lot of the violence and negativity that you see in the language. But even some of the artists who use those words were great storytellers. I mean, now, okay, Nas. There's
2 seconds. Go ahead.
Okay, Nas in his album Illmatic gives a portrait of what life was like in the housing projects of Queens that is better than any article you would ever read in the newspaper. Or there's a song by Naughty by Nature called Ghetto Bastard, which talks about how the elites of the society have left him to bring himself up, and that, you know, they're all alone. Some of these songs are harsh, and the language is harsh, but they tell an important story. What I don't see, I can't think of a single song today which tells a story as powerful as the ones of the 90s.
Mark Naison, Professor, African American Studies and History, Fordham University for 42 years. You have not lost an ounce of passion for your work and for your students, for your teaching. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
Same here. Stay right there.
Okay.
Folks, One-on-One will continue from the Tisch WNET studios here at Lincoln Center right after this.
If you would like more information on this program, or if you'd like to express an opinion, email us at info@caucusnj.org. Visit us online at oneonone.org. Or find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Steve Adubato, PhD.
There he is, the one, the only, Warner Wolf. You can hear him every morning on WABC. Imus in the morning, 6 to 10 a.m. Warner Wolf is there. How you doing, Warner?
Good. Having fun still.
Still, after,
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
It says 35 years, but then it says you've been doing it for more than that.
50.
That's not possible.
Oh, yeah. April Fool's Day, 1961.
Where were you? How
Started.
did it happen?
Oh, Pikeville, Kentucky. I had graduated college, American University, got out of the service, finished the service, and I knew this is what I wanted to do. I had known since I was 7. I used to listen to every radio show there was, every sports event, and there was no television, or if you can imagine that. So I put an ad in Broadcasting Magazine and said, a college graduate, military obligation fulfilled, money not the object. So we'll travel. So I got these 3 answers: Pikeville, Kentucky, Miami, Ohio, not Florida.
Got it.
And Terre Haute, Indiana. So I said, well, I've got to decide. They're interested. Oh, I said no experience, professional. Anyway, one guy calls me from Pikeville. He says, if you come down here, I'll teach you everything. I'll give you the whole business. He says, I just have 2 questions. Yes, sir. He says, do you drink and have you ever been in jail? So
That's the criteria.
Yeah, that was it. So I said, well, I have a beer once in a while, but I've never been in jail. Just boom, you're hired. And the man kept his word. I was the sportscaster, the newscaster, the disc jockey. We did obituary shows. I was the morning guy, as usual, when you start out. The way we checked the weather was you'd go out in the back and there would be this ruler and you'd measure the rainfall. So you'd tell them how much, But it was great. And I had to change my name, too, by the way.
You did?
Yeah,
It was not Warner Wolf?
No. He said, Warner. What is this? He says, nobody, I never heard of the name. I said, wait a minute. Warner Brothers, Warner Baxter was an old...
That's right, we're not in New York.
Yeah. No, he says, I want you to go home and get a name. I came back and I said, how about Robin? He says, Robin? That's a girl's name. I said, no. I said, Robin Roberts. You never heard of the picture? No. So I came back. I said, I got one. Jay. He said, what do you mean, Jay? I said, J-A-Y. Jay Wolf. No. He said, it sounds like the letter. He says, give me another name. Came back. I said, how about Ken? That's it.
Ken?
Ken.
Ken what?
Ken Wolf.
Get out of here.
No. So for a half a year, I was Ken Wolf. And you had to walk down the street as Pikeville. There were only 5,000 people then. Guy would yell out, and everybody knows who you are in a small town.
Right.
Hey, Ken. I'd keep walking because I thought I was talking to somebody else.
Well, let me tell you something. Here in New York, we're right outside 66th and Broadway, the Tisch WNET studios. Warner Wolf, they don't yell out Ken, they yell out Warner. And they also yell out, give me a break.
That's
Or
right.
they yell out, let's go to the videotape.
Yeah.
All right, I got to do this because we got an
sure.
8-minute segment here.
Yeah.
Which one did you do first?
Oh, let's go the videotape came
What
first.
year? What was the circumstance?
Oh, 1968. I'm working at WTOP television in Washington.
Right. Before you come to New York, because that's where you're big first. Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
I was in radio 8 years before I was ever on television, and 15 years in the business before I ever came to New York. So one night, I'm doing the 11 o'clock news, and we used to get film. There wasn't a lot of videotape. You get film highlights from the 11 o'clock feed, we used to call it, the syndication. So there's a basketball game, and I said, I used to give the normal cues, oh, take a look at this. Here's Kareem, or here's Wilt, and nothing happens. And the camera's still on me. I said, well, you got to see this, and nothing. So finally I said, hey, let's go to the videotape. Boom, comes up after the show. The producer, Ernie Bowery, says, that was great. He says, I was doing 10,000 things, but when I heard you say, let's go to the videotape, boom, punch it up. He said, do it tomorrow night.
That's where it was born?
That's how it happened. Kept doing it. So it was just by accident.
I got to tell you something. Every time I'm here and I say, let's go to the videotape, I'm going, wow, I'm stealing Warner right here. Everybody does it.
Oh, that's fine.
It's beautiful. By the way, Warner and I worked together a few years back with Curtis and Kuby. WABC, and that studio was wild.
That was great.
That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Also, when I was subbing there, Warner got me through a lot of tough times when I had nothing to say on the air.
Is that possible?
Yes. Give me a break.
Oh, give me a break.
Give me a break.
Yes. When watching a Redskin game against...
Give me the year. Washington again?
Yes. This was about 1967.
Right.
And I used it for radio first. So the Lions are playing the Redskins, and there was a terrible call against the Redskins. And so I went on the air, and I said, come on. Actually watching, I said, come on, ref, give me a break. And somebody said, hey, that's funny. That's good. So I went on the air the next day, and it was television. I showed the play. I said, come on, give us a break. And that caught, hey, come on, give me a break. So that's...
I got to ask you, because, again, having worked with Warner in the past and now doing a lot of work for another radio station, WOR, and you helped me get my start with those guys, Curtis and Kuby. But I got to tell you, I still love this. There's nothing like doing this and radio stuff. But after 50 years, I'm curious, how are you still as passionate as you are? Because you have not lost this much.
Oh, you have to be excited about it.
You don't have to be. You choose to be.
Well, my father was a vaudevillian. And one thing, he gave me a lesson. He said, you know, son, he said, there are no matinees. What he meant by that is, in the old days of vaudeville, you used to have Wednesday matinees and Saturday matinees. You still do. And sometimes the big stars would say, yeah, I'm too sick, I can't show up on Wednesday, or they just go through the motions. He said, there are no matinees, and you don't know who's listening to you or watching you for the first time. I said, you're right. So every show, you've got to get up. I mean, how long is, what are you, 5 minutes at best, you can't get up? You know, the people don't want to hear your problems, they have their own problems. So you take them away from anything that ails them for about 5 minutes.
You never know who's watching. You know, so
no.
Next show we're actually taping after this is with our good friend Dr. Bill Baker, the president emeritus of WNET. He's the one who discovered Oprah, brought her.
Oh.
Down in Baltimore.
Sure.
You never know who was watching then.
That's
Meaning
right.
you never know.
No.
No matter what you're doing, where you are.
No.
Matinee, what time. People say it's a crappy shift. Who's going to be listening?
Oh, no. No, you can't. If you have that attitude, you better get out now. There's no question about it. You've got to be excited about it. Man, but I keep doing it. I mean, it's like great for the mind. You have to keep your mind active.
And Warner's mind is very active every morning on WABC, right?
Yes, WABC.
And what are the hours again?
6 to 10 a.m.
With that guy, what's his name?
Don Imus.
Speaking about shy and retiring guys every morning, and
yeah, there you go.
You keep them going.
Well, I don't know about that.
You check it out, and Warner, it is an honor to have you.
Oh, this is great.
Thank you.
I enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
Always a pleasure.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. Steve Adubato here from the Tisch WNET studios. We got passion here. I know that. We'll be right back right after this. Thank you.
If you would like more information on this program, or if you'd like to express an opinion, email us at info@caucusnj.org. Visit us online at oneonone.org. Or find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Steve Adubato, PhD.
WNET is pleased to have Melissa Harris-Perry, host of MSNBC's Melissa Harris-Perry, also professor of political science at Tulane University. How you doing?
Pretty good, yeah.
You have a wild career. Now, you teach at Tulane.
Yeah.
From Monday through Thursday.
Monday through Thursday.
Jump on a plane.
Yep.
Come up to New York.
Yep.
And then you do MSNBC on Saturdays and Sundays, 10 to noon.
Yes.
Like every other faculty member, tenured faculty member, right?
No, it's nuts, and at this point, I'm working 7 days a week. But it's hard to complain when your life is New Orleans and New York. Like, there's really very little to complain about there. And the opportunity to sort of have the classroom as a laboratory for ideas, and then the very big classroom of national media presence, it's actually really a lot of fun.
And Melissa Spare Time, of course, wrote Sister Citizen, Shame, Stereotypes, and Black Women in America. Good stuff. I am a fan of your program.
Thank you.
And I enjoy it on the weekends and learn a lot from it. You've added a great deal to the network, and as someone who's been connected to the network for a while and know many of your colleagues, it's changed the nature of that discussion. You brought in some folks who otherwise, let me just say, Michael Eric Dyson and others who have been part of it, you've added to it more diversity in the discussion. A conscious decision to bring in the folks that you do, academics and otherwise, who sometimes don't get heard from in the so-called talking head world.
It's a little bit of a conscious decision. It's also just that we, I think all of us in media tend to reproduce ourselves in some important ways. So, we're sitting around a table with my, whole team. There's 12 or 13 of us. And some folks
Producers, bookers.
Yeah, producers, bookers, writers. And some folks are veteran journalists who have kind of in their roster of people who would be smart to talk to, other veteran journalists. Some folks are, barely out of graduate school. And so they're talking about all the folks they've just read recently. And so we really bring all of that together, but it is conscious that we want racial diversity, we want gender diversity, we try to make sure that we have queer and straight folks at the table together, but also that we have, I like to say we like our egghead nerds and our movie stars, and we want everybody to be there in the conversation.
Mix it up.
Yeah.
How interesting is it for you as an academic, a tenured faculty member, I believe one of the only, if not the only tenured faculty member with a regular cable talk show gig right, as a host? How challenging is it for you when you are in the classroom, doing what you are doing? Is it literally a laboratory for you in terms of constantly thinking of ideas that could work in both venues?
Yeah, it's interesting because the classroom part doesn't feel hard, maybe because that's the part I was trained for. I certainly never expected to have a media career. I fully expected to write academic books and teach students. It's what I've been doing for more than 15 years now. So that part doesn't feel hard. I think part of what happens, though, is in the classroom, a student will have an insight, and I think, you know what? That's an interesting TV segment right there. Like, what that student just said, or, I was obsessed during the fall semester with the First Ladies because I was teaching a course on America's First Ladies.
Yes, in fact, taught that course.
Yeah, and so, of course, we did a segment on the show about America's First Ladies. So sometimes there's the cross-pollination. The most important thing is I have to be careful in the classroom not to do what I do on television, which is on TV, I'm there in part to give my opinion. I'm not a journalist. I'm really a kind of point of view person. I'm there to do my analysis, but also to say, here's what I think. In the classroom, my goal is to get the students to tell me what they think, not to tell them what I think.
It's so interesting. Yesterday in that seat, Chris Jansing was here, your colleague, and said she does not see it that way. She sees herself as old school journalist, not to give her opinion. But there's a place for different kinds of hosts. Let me ask you this. We'll date ourselves because this show will air before the presidential election, and we may air it as well after because there's relevance after. This election will be fought over what?
The economy. Yeah, I think, people will have angst about social issues like reproductive rights and all of the things that we've been seeing, but that is actually happening mostly at the congressional level. The thing that we hold presidents accountable for is our economic conditions, and sometimes we hold them accountable for our economic conditions even when they have very little influence or impact on them. But this is, as both President Obama and Governor Romney have said, this is a decision between two different fundamental philosophies about how you jumpstart an economy. Is it stimulus spending and public sector employment, or is it lessening the burden of regulations, reducing taxes as far as possible, and kind of unleashing the power of the private sector? Those are the two visions, and Americans are going to have to make a choice between them.
Where does President Obama get the most points from you?
I actually think in his process, I've often said that I think President Obama is a process Democrat with a little d, that he really believes that democracy is meant to work in a particular way, even if the outcomes aren't always what you would ideologically want the outcomes to be, that the process is more important. And, the more that he talks about Lincoln, and he is constantly talking about Lincoln, but you get this clear sense that he understands Lincoln as the great savior of the Union, and that in saving the Union, he saved the process that makes America distinctive. And so if we're going to go forward, whether we're going to go forward with conservative leadership or progressive leadership, we have to do it through a kind of one man, one vote, conciliatory lawmaking. And so for me, he always keeps it Obama. He always sort of
keeps it Obama.
He always keeps that process in mind.
Real quick, any area where he just disappointed you?
Yeah, I'm probably pretty disappointed in what I think of as an over hawkishness. I would like to have seen us pull back from Afghanistan more quickly than we have. I'm not particularly happy with the drone attacks. You know, on the one hand, foreign policy will probably be his single greatest leg to stand on in the context of the presidential election. But I'm much more of a peacenik than the president is.
By the way, next time you come back, I promise you to talk more about the book, but I want to ask you this. Biggest area where you have a concern about Mitt Romney?
You know, for me, I think it's my sense that I can't quite tell who Mitt Romney is. If
you too?
Yeah, no. If Mitt Romney, the governor of Massachusetts, showed up, he doesn't scare me that much. I mean, we would disagree, but he was a pretty reasonable, moderate governor. If Mitt Romney, this candidate who is far to the right on immigration, who is pretty aggressive around reproductive rights, if that's the guy who shows up in the White House, then I'm distressed. And so I think for me, the biggest concern is I can't quite judge which Mitt Romney is the real Mitt Romney.
Finally, how much do you love your job? Jobs.
I love all my jobs, but I would happily take about a 6-week break from both of them and just sit with my 10-year-old daughter. But no, I'm not going to get that.
Not as we lead into this election.
No, not now.
It works.
Yeah, it does. I love this opportunity. It's really great.
You mind if I plug the show again?
Oh, please.
You're comfortable with that?
Yes, I am, very much so.
Even though we're PBS, it's okay with you?
Please, yes.
Melissa Harris-Perry, the host of MSNBC's Melissa Harris-Perry. You can check her out Saturdays and Sundays, 10 to noon. She's a professor of political science at Tulane University. And also check out her book, Sister Citizens, Shame, Stereotypes, and Black Women in America. And I want to thank you so much for joining us here at WNET's Tisch WNET studio at Lincoln Center.
This special edition of One-on-One with Steve Adubato is brought to you from the Tisch WNET studios at Lincoln Center. Funding has been provided by Caldwell College, New Jersey Manufacturers Insurance Group, auto insurance, homeowners insurance, and banking under the principle of stewardship. QualCare Inc., a local managed care company covering 750,000 New Jersey residents. And by Verizon Communications. Promotional support provided by The Record, North Jersey's trusted source, and NorthJersey.com. Transportation provided by Airbrook Limousine, serving the metropolitan New York, New Jersey area. One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been produced in partnership with St. Joseph's Healthcare System.
I'm Steve Adubato. Join me for the next edition of Caucus New Jersey, Taxes, Healthcare, Education, and the Economy. I'll ask the questions that you want answered.
Airing on NJTV, 13, and WHYY. Check your local listings.